everyone. Very good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. This is the inaugural version of the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. I am your host, Rob. And today we have to launch this a brilliant guest. This is one of my favorite, a real gem in the alcoholic beverage space globally, a master of wine, the fourth female master of wine in the United States. I'm not sure where she ranks in the number, but there is, I believe, under 400 masters of wine currently living. This is an exclusive club. This is the pinnacle of the academic and trade side of learning. You're looking at something that is more difficult to achieve than a PhD. The standards are rigorous. Often people, after they've completed the hard WSET or WSET diploma, sit in the Institute of the Masters of Wine for around 5 to 8 years before they finally achieve that designation, if they do. Very arduous, very difficult. Includes things like 24 blind wines. Blind tasting is part of the exam. I believe the exam is something like 2 or 3 days in total, where you're brought back in different segments of it. So without further delay, Jennifer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I feel really honored to be one of your first guests on this.
Yes, and we're celebrating extraordinary drinks with extraordinary people. You happen to know a ton about extraordinary drinks, and you're an extraordinary person. So this just fits the billing beautifully. So, in the space of being an MW, in the space of being in the wine industry, I think you're entering your third decade in this industry. Would that be correct?
Overall, I started in the industry in 2000. So yeah, I'm starting into my third. You're right, into my third. Ooh. So
we're getting old.
I know. I don't. Yeah. My joints are telling me I'm getting old, but I'm gonna keep that to myself. But yeah, so I've seen so many changes over the last 20 years, right? I mean, it's an insane on what we've seen and what's popular today and what was popular back in the early 2000s and what we were talking about wines from the 1990s. It's a new world. It's a new world.
Yeah, and you came in at a great time. I came in later. Like my entrance and training into wine was in 2012. So I'm just closing a decade in this industry. And, after a decade, you really start to pick up a lot of core competencies. I mean, you're well past that, but you've seen so much. I mean, you really came in with the whole wine explosion, the Renaissance that kicked off in the 90s and really gravitated into the 2000s. You thought about much cleaner styles of wines coming out of Friuli Venezia Giulia. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're Italian and you know these terms better than I do in the actual pronunciation. But you saw an explosion of Australia. You saw
South Africa.
Catina Zapata really come to life in the late 90s. You saw really the full maturation of Tignanello and Sassicaia, so the Super Tuscans. We've seen much cleaner styles of wine again coming out of places. The old world starting to really bring back more indigenous styles. I mean the New Zealand explosion. There's so many things that have taken place here.
Well, you and I have talked about this before, where back in the 90s, if you look at Wine Spectator and you look at some of those old versions of publications from that time, and you look at Bordeaux, Burgundy, you look at even Tignanello or Sassicaia, you look and all the experts and journalists back then were all talking about barnyard. It had to have barnyard because it is terroir. This is the most incredible thing you have to talk about. And so barnyard just means it tastes like shit, right? It tastes like animal poop.
Farm, funky, musty, old wood, rotting hay smell.
Right, and this was sous-bois. It tastes like it's dead leaves underneath a rotting piece of wood in the forest. And so back then, it was like those were the complexities that you wanted and needed to have in wines for it to be of upper echelon. And I remember back then going, okay, well, I get what you're tasting and I get what you're talking about, but today, we don't talk about that. I mean, because we know now that this barnyard is as a result of Brettanomyces, which creates a chemical called 4-ethylphenol, which kind of creates that barnyardy poop kind of smell. And like, it was the Australians that came around that was kind of like, yeah, we don't like that. So they tried to eradicate it, through hygiene of their barrels and hygienes in the wineries and stuff like that. And I think the rest of the world kind of understood that maybe it's not the best thing in what we're tasting and wine. So tastes have changed. So as one decade or one era, like it was pinnacle to it being high quality wine. And now we're like, yeah, I don't even miss it. So
Do you think
crazy.
A lot of it is? Do you think a lot of that has to do with just the explosion of cultured yeasts? I mean, Brettanomyces is obviously a wild yeast. It forms in the wild on fruit sets, just about everything it can live and grow
Brettanomyces itself, Brettanomyces eats wood sugar. So it's a yeast that eats lots of wood sugar. So it's any place you've got wood barrels, or even in old wineries where you've got wood barristers and all things in wood in the winery, it will hide in there. And then it'll eat the wood sugars, and then it'll create that chemical which will leach into the wine. So it is a yeast. You're absolutely right. And cultured yeast does create for more kind of what we call squeaky clean kind of flavors in wine. But all that means is that they're predictable. And I think you do have some winemakers who want a little bit more of that complexity, that je ne sais quoi, there's some layers in there that you can't quite, pinpoint. But then you got the other side, which is squeaky clean. You want to have that real clean fruit popping out. And you can get that with inoculated yeast. And I think hygiene in the last 20 to 30 years has really exploded. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and brewing is, on the other end, is much the same thing. And Brettanomyces is used for lambics, for instance. If you're ever in Peyotton land and you look what a cool ship looks like, it's these shallow wooden vessels, that are open. And the yeast just attacks the wort while it's sitting there cooling down, and it's moldy and funky, and it's exactly where they get this yeasty barnyard taste. It comes up a lot in Belgian beers, and they use a lot of wild yeasts. And you're right, because the cultured side of it, it's a lot easier to control. Yeast strains are highly guarded, like a trade secret. People sit on these things and patent them and lock them away in a cupboard somewhere. And they're usually frozen, I believe, like they're kept in storage, almost in cryogenic kind of conditions, if you want to get scientific.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, yeast are just living microorganisms. And if you cool them down or you freeze them, they just go to sleep. So you're keeping them as long period of time. So as you can wake them up, just warm up the temperature, but that's really what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to give a high five to Louis Pasteur back in 1857 for discovering this in the first place. And this really, coinciding with wine and talking about the drinks world, that discovery launched a whole industrial, it was right in the smack in the middle of the 11 decades of where beer went through a massive industrial revolution from the 1780s to the 1890s. But with yeast, you started to understand a ton of things. You started to understand the phenols and the flavor compounds that come off certain strains. I mean, they were able to really break down the strains and identify them, what was better for this type of ale or this type of lager. And I imagine a lot of that technology just spilled over into the wine world and into distilling as well. And this is, this is what's cool about this subject.
Yeah, and the geeks abound, and I love all the academics and all the geekiness. More books, more technology, more geekiness, more better. And actually, you're talking about phenols, and in wine, I'm drinking a Roero Arneas by Bruno Giacosa.
Oh, and very nice.
Oh, I love this wine. It's about $30.
Italian.
I got it at Total Wine. It's about $30, and it's at the upper end of the spectrum for this grape in terms of price point. So about $30. Normally, you'll see it about $20 or whatever. But the extract in this wine is fantastic. And what is dry extract in wine? Dry extract is all those powdery kind of compounds that you get, other than, wine is water, alcohol, and like other bits, which makes it taste
yeast.
Good. Yeah, yeast, all the kind of stuff. You have flavor compounds and phenols and the other bits. Like if you've ever made chocolate milk, And back in the day when we all used to make our own chocolate milk, you would pour in the syrup, and the more syrup you poured in, the darker it got. That's kind of like dry extract. You know what I mean? So, so this normally a white wine will have anywhere from 15 to about 20 grams per liter of dry extract, the powdered bits. Well, this one's got 22. And
Ooh.
so, yeah, so the higher you get, your palate's kind of going, oh, no, it's like having more chocolate in your chocolate milk. And so, we tend to gravitate towards those kinds of wines. And that kind of leads to perception of quality. It's like, oh, this got some more oomph. It's got more stuff in it. You know what I mean? So
now Arnaz is, that means difficult one, does it not? And it translates into, because it's a difficult grape to cultivate, is it not?
You may be right. Actually, I should know that, but I don't off the top of my head.
It's okay. I'm not 100% either. I'm just remembering from doing the IWS.
Sounds right.
It's
a good story anyway.
It's a difficult grape. It's indigenous.
It is, but it wasn't. I mean, it was Vietti that really tried to bring it back from extinction in Piemonte. And so, because for the longest time, all they talked about was Gavi, Cortese, which is the grape in Gavi, and then you have Muscato d'Asti, so
Suave.
or Moscato or Spumante. So you've got Muscat and you've got Cortese, which were the pinnacle grapes there in Piemonte. But then I think it was back in the 70s. That Vietti in particular was really trying to bring this back from extinction and making sure that it didn't go by the wayside. I mean, Italy has thousands of indigenous grapes
they don't even count.
Know.
And in their national registry, the interesting thing is some of the distinct varietals are still classified as the same grape too, and they're still sifting through some of this. It's crazy. And you're right. I mean, it's Arnaz it's not, the other grapes, Glera, obviously for Prosecco, and then you have Garganega for Suave. So it's these are some indigenous grapes, and a lot of people don't think of them because we've been conditioned with that whole explosion in the 80s with Chardonnay into the 90s with
Pinot
all these
Grigio
international styles.
People think of
Sauvignon
Italian
Blanc.
white, yeah, exactly. You just think of the noble grapes, Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, and Chardonnay. Like, it's simplified wine for us. It's simplified wine. The problem is that you're losing some of the complexity and the layers there. And there's a life lesson, I think, to be in all of that. Like, so for example, there was a wine I tasted 2 weeks ago, and it was a New Zealand Pinot Gris, right? So here we have a New Zealand Pinot Gris, and this is not something I would personally drink for my own enjoyment. Why? I don't know, but I just never think of it. So I grabbed it and I'm tasting it. I'm like, the first time I tasted it, I was like, meh. And this particular wine, I won't, say what it was, but, I tasted it, I was like, it's not for me. And then I was like, the second time I tasted it, you know what? I'm going to write a detailed note on it. So when I said, okay, now I'm going to type up, what I think of the colors, the aroma, the body, the acid. I'm going to go through the whole analysis of it. And at the end, I was like, oh, I kind of like it. So if I think that when we delve into things that we ordinarily it's not immediately attractive, but you spend a little time with it, looking at it for what it is, then it's kind of like, I appreciate it for what it is. And I think that that's what wine or beer or like different styles in different countries and different grapes, that's what comes out of tasting wine. You're like, you know what? I may not drink this every day, but I appreciate it for what it is. And I enjoy that this is different than this. And that's why I love tasting, comparing, and contrasting things together.
Yeah, and you're really, really good at it. I know with the blind tasting X course, this brings me into my next point. You talk laterals and how to really and the importance of taking notes, even if you're an aficionado. Taking notes on what you drank and just writing out what you believe is in it is important. It's a neat process because you'll start to remember and recognize along the way what you like and don't like, what your preferences are, what your biases are. Naturally, we're all full of bias. So, I mean, that's an inescapable and an unfortunate inevitability, but it's just the way things are.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Rob, you and I, when we first started, drinking wine, we would only drink, let's say, one wine per happy hour, or one wine at a wedding, or one wine per social event. But when you're trying to learn wine, the best way to learn is to compare and contrast. So am I telling you to drink more different stuff at the same time? Yes. So if you're
and it's fun, this is fun. The happy hour. This is what you're supposed to do.
So, so if you really wanted to look at Arneus as a grape variety and look at its what we call markers, so what makes it? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What is the weight of it? What's the acid? In order for it to stand out, you need to compare it and drink it with something else that you're very familiar with. So if you wanted a Pinot Grigio, Italian Pinot Grigio, or even an oaked Chardonnay or a Sauvignon Blanc, if those are your go-to whites, having this next to it will bring out the differences that much more.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So drinking it by itself is good. Put it against something, those differences pop, right? So I think it's a much better way to really learn about your palate and then learn about different markers for wines. But you brought up laterals. I actually learned the concept of laterals through the master sommeliers that I've met. And I was like, what does this lateral thing mean? All it means is if you taste a wine and
they're very good at that.
It,
so
they're very good. Yeah.
They're very good at this.
So a lateral is like, if I taste this wine and I don't think it's Arneus, but I think I'm going to make this up. I'm going to think it's an Acertico from Greece. Well, Acertico or a Verdicchio. And if I mistook
I've had Verdicchio, so yeah, you can mistake it.
If you can easily mistake it for something else, that is its lateral. I would never confuse this for an oak Chardonnay. Why? Because it has no oak and it's not Chardonnay. And it has a very different profile. But so that's not a lateral of Arneus, but a Verdicchio might be, or an Acertico might be. So that's what a lateral is. And understanding when you're blind tasting, when you taste something and it reminds you of something, now it automatically reduces the universe of what you might possibly think that it is. So it can be a tool that's used to help you in blind tasting.
You make that sound so easy. It's like, a lot of other.
Is easy.
And listen, I've sat in courses with other wine students. I sat through your program with some other wine students. Some of them doing, some amazing things, working on their MW, and some of them were really stuck on that concept. It's something that I remember you sitting back saying, "Listen, it's not just the theory. In the end of the day, you got to understand what you're drinking, because if we go to the consumer level, they're not going to care so much about all the nuances and the academia that we love. They're going to care about, what is this wine good for on an occasion? What can I pair with it? And your thoughts moving along.
Or what is it like?
Yeah.
What is it like? If I like this, will I like that?
Exactly.
And a lateral will tell you that.
Yeah. And a wine like this, I would imagine it would be great on a hot day out in the deck. Some light foods. Even chips, salty chips always seem to find and wing their way with wine pretty easily.
I eat chips with everything, though. Let me be honest. Yeah. But an Arneus is in terms of its acidity and weight and all that. This is a meatier, this version anyway, Bruno Giacosa. It's a meatier version of this grape. So it's not the same as like a very light Sancerre, which you would love to have with a white fish. And because just like you put lemon on fish, it'll make the flavors of the fish pop. This wine probably wouldn't do it as much, but I could see this with like roasted chicken, or roasted chicken salad. So it's a little bit weightier than a delicate light fish. But yeah, it's so hot outside today. It really is.
It's a steam bath here. We're north of you in Ottawa. You're in New York City. And, just to catch one last thing, if anyone's confused about the word Sancerre, it's a Sauvignon Blanc. You think of it. It's zesty, amazing wines. They tend to be quite a bit of mineral content, a lot of limestone tuffeau, like that porous rock that grows, in the soil sets along Loire Valley. It's quite incredible, and it's What would you, this would be a great wine to gift somebody too, I would imagine, because this sounds like a friendly wine. It sounds like something that
It
a lot of
is.
people
It's
would
a
gravitate
very
to.
user friendly. Yeah. And if you have one of the reasons why Pinot Grigio is so popular is because it's middle of the road everything. It's medium body, medium acid, medium alcohol. Like in the bell curve of everything, it's kind of middle of the road. So you're not going to offend anybody palate wise with with a Pinot Grigio. And I think Arneus is probably a lateral of Pinot Grigio in that sense, where it's definitely not going to offend anyone. Some of the cheaper versions, though, some of the cheaper versions of Arneus and some Italian whites, they tend to be more neutral
They're kind of
aromatically, and
bland. They're kind of
they're kind
bland.
of bland. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is one of those points that I get by wine students all the time. The cheaper you go, the less varietally typical and origin typical it is. So the more expensive it is generally. So if you're going $15 to about $30, that is like a sweet spot for
It is.
particularly
It
getting
really
some
is.
varietal or
Yeah.
variety typicity in
Yeah.
there. So,
And
but if you're buying $8 wines, it's not going to be very typical. So,
yeah, and if you're watching this in the UK, they have Majestic. Total Wine's a machine of a shop in the States. I love dealing with them. I do virtual tastings and virtual beer and wine tastings. It's so easy to match up product on an international list between what we have in the LCBO or the SAQ here in Quebec, which is a stone's throw away. The border is now reopening, so I can take advantage of. They have an amazing European selection. I find the LCBO is much better on California, Ontario, other regions, New World, Old World. SAQ seems to beat them, but these are just things and ideas. Explore your local wine shops. Or,
yeah.
In the case of beer, I'm drinking a Trappist beer. This is a Chimay Blue. So this rates about 95, 96 points consistently on a scale. So that would compare into the wine world with Nicholas Catina Zapata's vintage, or his Milzimato wines, as we like to call them in Italian, the vintage or the year. Where they're usually upwards of $80, $90, $100 a bottle. I'm not sure, but
they're in the luxury end.
Pretty good price point, but well worth the money. I mean, they consistently hit 95, 96 points. So in the beer world, this is great. This is a 9% alcohol beer. You can see that it's got this dark complexion to it. It almost looks like prune and plum with a bit of brown sugar in it in a glass. A lot of these notes come off on the palate or on the nose too. So this is quite a bit of spiciness in here. Things like nutmeg, baking spice. You can smell brown sugar. Very complex, very heavily layered beer. And the cool thing is, talking about this in a happy hour with the virtual drink experience, is most people associate beer with either an IPA, a lager.
Yeah. Does it have a
some
hops kind of flavor?
This one, not an overly. Belgians typically don't hop the hell out of their beer. They tend to be on the lower scale on hop presence. This will have some presence to match with the weight, the alcohol, and the acidity in the beer itself. But definitely some dryness on the palate. I mean, they've really. So Chimay is part of a Trappist order of monks that ties all the way back to the Benedictines, to the Cistercians. They were disrupted when Napoleon Bonaparte sacked all the churches and confiscated all their lands, sent the priests running for the hills, probably executed a few of them along the way. My belief is Napoleon was an atheist, and he was focused really on empire. And
I actually think even more so than I think Napoleon was actually really trying to bring down the power of the Roman Catholic Church.
Yes.
And so whether he actually believed in God or not, I'm not too sure. But I think that he didn't like the power that the Roman Catholic Church had at the time. So at the time, from what I understand, he was looking for all of the background on the Inquisition documents. He was looking for all these different things all around the empire. But one of the things you bring up about the monks, which I find fascinating, it's almost like how you would view kosher wine. But these monks, like if these monks can't make this wine, then it doesn't exist. Is that correct?
Well, or this beer, yeah. So it has to be Trappist. In order to be Trappist, it has to be brewed within the walls of the monastery itself. And Chimay goes back to, I believe, 1870 or a little bit before in the Wallonia region of France. So, of Belgium. Belgium sliced between Flanders, around the city or urban center of Brussels, and then Wallonia is the southern part. So really you have three major regions, two major cultures clashing all the time between Dutch and French, or Flemish and French. This comes on the French side. So Chimay Abbey, I believe, even dates further back. You go back to the 9th century. Whoa. With the Benedictine monk order. So
wow.
And like anything, a lot of these monasteries, their services and their membership have been disrupted through war, famine, even brewing operations. You think of it, Belgium was definitely a trampling spot in both World War I and World War II. They did not have a fun time seeing a pile of invasion and Allied forces marching in and out of their country all the time. And grain would be disrupted from brewing for food production. And part of what would sustain these monasteries, at least, is because it was protected. This was used. I mean, they believe into the adherence of strict discipline and order. You only consume what you need, and you only sell what preserves what you're building. In this case, the proceeds go to charity, or they go to maintaining the monastery and erecting new buildings. Now, there's only 14 of them. Now it's down to 13 because I believe a shell is now an abbey beer because there is no active monks living in the monastery anymore. Brewing option continued, but it's continued from the outside. In the middle of that minute that the difference in an abbey and a Trappist beer, it's like a DLC and a DOCG. It's, they're both kind of classified protected regions. An abbey beer would be like Leffe, where it's commercially produced, but it's still under the supervision of the monks or a monastic recipe or way of brewing. So this ties everything into the whole brewing concept. Yeah. So, if you're watching this, share this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. This will be posted on the Drunken Grape YouTube channel. Just some polite notes here. Make sure to follow Jennifer and connect with her as well. masterwineonline.com. You can reach through, I believe you're on just about you're pretty prolific on every form of social media. Actually, you've got a large LinkedIn account. You have a large Twitter following. I believe you're pretty active on Instagram, Facebook. You're pretty, and what's really cool about what you've achieved and where you're at, you're really, really an approachable character. And I even think you've probably, as a woman professionally, things have gotten better for women in the last 2 decades, but you probably faced a bit of challenge as well in the earlier days of really taking off, particularly wine being such a casted, traditional type environment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You had trailblazers like Jancis Robinson before, fortunately, but the great Jancis Robinson, as I like to call her.
Yeah. I mean, Jancis Robinson buys wine for the queen.
Robinson,
I mean, yeah. She's,
it does get much better than that, does it?
Yeah, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. And there are a lot of pioneers that paved the way for women to be doing this. But even when I started in the early 2000s, I mean, I remember winemakers I would meet. This Champagne winemaker literally said to me, Jennifer, if I did not proposition every woman I met, they would be insulted. I'm like,
Jesus.
If you don't ask me to sleep with you, I promise you I won't be insulted. I promise.
And I'll probably be better to work with in business because you're being just a little bit more professional. Man, I believe it too. I mean, I was born in the early 70s, and I remember even going into the workplace in the late 80s, and the female boss of 40 years old goes, "Hey, you're cute," and slap your ass along the way and stuff like this. And then I was just sitting there chopping cucumbers or something in the kitchen, and I'm just like, did that
Did this really happen?
You have no experience with sexuality and things like that, are very limited at 17. This is a shock. This is a shock to you, and this is just a fraction of probably what you endured. And I think looking at women in business,
getting out of college, I remember going to a firm to try to go get a job, and they said, "Oh, well, you're a woman. We need to give you the typing test." and we give the men the math test. I said, I swear I'm better at math. Please don't make me type, because like at the time I couldn't really type very fast, but I was like, I will do so much better on that math test. And so they gave me the math test,
and you crushed it.
And I crushed it. But the thing is that now I'm sitting in front of this guy who's like, okay, well, we have these job opportunities for you. But so what do you say for a drink next Saturday night? I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Okay. Now, like, I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm just about to blow this interview because and actually I said, look, hey, you're an attractive guy and you look like someone I would love to date, but can we put that to the side for a minute and just talk about the opportunities themselves? And even then he's like, I'm sorry, there's no opportunities.
It's ridiculous.
For you.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And it's funny because correct me if I'm wrong, but you likely have a commerce or business degree. I mean, you're a banker by background. You're a pretty high level banker by background before you jumped into this.
I don't know if I was a high level banker, but I was in international banking within Citicorp, and so it was the corporate side in investment banking in the UK, working for Citicorp. So that it was because of that I left. So the short answer when people say, "What drove you to the wine industry?" is like, "Well, banking made me drink." But it's a long.
But you had a good luncheon. You had a good luncheon with a great Sauvignon Blanc paired with fish or something like that. And this is I remember this story. This is what sparked you. And it's an aha moment. I mean, my aha moment was, I've always been passionate. I mean, my real background before wine's mixology, bartending. I had this job on the side. I went into it full time when I went into studying wine. I had a plan. But before that, I had an IT business. I was involved in technology and I was at a crossroads. I wanted to figure out, what the hell do I want to do with the rest of my life? I'm about to clock 40 years old. And what the hell, like what's going on? And my dad was a home brewer and winemaker for the bulk of his life.
Really?
Michael Jackson's original book on 1977 on the World Guide to Beer. And, he's got his whiskey book. It's too bad he passed in 2007. Brilliant in what he brought to the world in these industries. Brilliant.
Yeah, I have his whiskey books. They're fantastic. Yeah, and where you get your inspiration can be a little bit from your family, but just like you with me, I found that money didn't mean everything. And so if you don't want your boss's job or you don't want your boss's job, it can be a red flag that there's something else out there for you. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but. And
this is a great spin to sort of in the last couple of minutes to wrap this up. For anybody watching this, pursue your passion. Don't waste your time with other shit. Let's be frank about it. The rest of it's bullshit. It's if you're chasing money, trust me, I worked in the cruise line industry. I saw the end game. And the end game was two people, 70 something years of age, not even speaking, husband and wife, miserable, health conditions, walkers and wheelchairs. And, I got to know a lot of these guests, and the really healthy and active ones, some of them incredibly successful, but they were passionate and they stayed busy and and this really enhanced the rest of their lives. And they looked at me and said, first thing, don't do what these people did. They chased money and all the wrong things. And this is the outcome. Their health is gone.
Yeah.
It's 50 years of working 16 hours a day in drudgery. Somehow the wife put up with it because, it's very patriarchal. That's the society that it was, still continues to be in some cases. Hopefully we can fix that. It is a problem. But, and having had a twin sister, I firmly believe this. The equality is just that you got equality on ability and talent. Like talent doesn't discriminate. Either you have it or you don't. Follow your passion, pursue things you love to do. And I think that's great that you did this because obviously, I mean, I know you're doing very well in your field now, but it took time to get there and you really went into you're an entrepreneur too. I mean, this is also what makes you unique as a master of wine. Most of them are teaching or they're working with some large distributor. Now they've got big jobs. I'm not going to dismiss this. They educate and coach people.
Hey, but being an entrepreneur ain't it ain't picking daisies, let me tell you.
No, because it's true.
It's very, very difficult. But at the end of the day, if you want to work for yourself, that's the only road that you have really. And then figuring out what it is that you want to do. I think that you're absolutely right. Coming back to what do I want to chase? If I'm chasing money, there's a law of diminishing
Cheers to that.
returns.
It's
Cheers
true.
to that. Exactly. So you can't cheers and not taste. Okay. So otherwise it just neutralizes it. But if you chase money, you're always going to be disappointed. And even chasing fame. I mean, I've been on every news network there is. And
Oh yeah,
I've
that's the other thing. I mean, you're world renowned. People know your name and your face, like you are known.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that anymore, but I've been there. That's my point. Is I've been there, and whether it's chasing money or chasing fame, I realize that's not. Simplify your life on what is essential to what makes you happy, and what's essential to making you and those around you happier and better. And that's has more meaning than any fame or fortune that you could ever achieve. Yeah.
And experience things. I know as an entrepreneur, sure. I mean, I'm definitely behind you. I'm not in this game as long, but it's growing, it's building. I'm at the point of seeing sustainability really around the corner, which is cool. And awesome. It takes work and it takes elbow grease and it takes conviction. This road isn't for everybody, but honestly, if you want true freedom, entrepreneurship is the road. Yeah. And it is the only avenue. I mean, you're one of the few, even at the pinnacle of where you're at on credentials and education. You're right at the top of the food chain. You are also free. You do what you wish. I mean, you're like, you're like Jancis Robinson. She gets to write her own ticket. There's only a handful of you that really do. And it's what an incredible journey. And it also shows you that even in our field, you don't have to be all the way at that top of the education bracket to do well. I mean, look at Robert Parker.
You don't need the MW in order to do what I'm doing. You don't. I mean, I'm teaching. I'm teaching MWs. Yeah, I'm teaching MWs to pass the MW. So you may need the credential for that. Yeah. But teaching people to taste wine or teaching people or pursuing, like I was talking to someone the other day who called me and he was looking, like, I'm looking to get into the wine industry. He goes, I'm looking to get into sales. I'm like, after talking with him for a few minutes, like, you don't want sales. I was like, well, it sounds like you love traveling and it sounds like it's like, what about creating a business around wine tourism? And his eyes got like real big. He
vlogging and blogging. Yeah. Blogging, video. I mean, one bracket that I've explored and I plan after the pandemic to really tap into again is videography for wineries and breweries, because so many of them need the exposure, not just the shelf space at Total Wine or the LCBO or Majestic or wherever you are. I don't know I know they have a lot of private outlets in Australia and other parts of the world. I'm not sure what they are, but it's at the end of the day, video and visual exposure, especially in the social media driven world we live in today, especially with the growth of virtual, it's not going to disappear. It is now here to stay and expanded. The pandemic showed us this. I mean, corporate office spaces are going to collapse. And why wouldn't they, when you can save a fortune, keep salaries the same when revenues have fallen a bit, or you can raise them and you can outfit people with an office at the same time. Yeah. So there's just a lot of possibility and potential there. And it's the same thing with wine. They can take their journey online like I did, or you have. Oh, yeah. And it gives you the mobility to really do anything and go anywhere. And this is a recession-proof industry.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I have the Blind Tasting X program for people who are looking to improve their blind tasting for an exam. But the next level that I'm coming out with is a tasting course, something that people can taste at home, as well as I'll build something that they can do online so that they can taste. And one of the biggest things about tasting wine is about the curation. So when you attend a tasting, someone's already curated those wines for you to taste and say, taste this versus this. And that's the experience that you're looking for. You can learn about geography and history, which is amazing, and I geek out over it. But being able, if you're not into that level,
I love that stuff.
I know. But if you're not into that just yet, and you really just want to get into, I want to taste this versus this, that's the next level that I'm going to be coming out with. So if people are interested, go to masterwineonline.com to sign up for my list. Otherwise, you'll probably hear about it in another way.
Yeah, and to part things off and close things off, you're truly gifted at what you do.
Oh,
I
thank you.
sit through these things and it's just like, it's not just the passion and enthusiasm and the character and the personality, because you got a lot of charm and a lot of wit, which is a talent.
You're my
But you also
favorite
have a
person, Rob.
keen
Thank you.
innate. Cheers to that. Or sociable, as they say in cheftorial parties. A big shout out to them. They do virtual tasting parties as well. They're pretty cool. Cooking and dinner parties. Yeah,
Cheftorial, is that what you said?
Cheftorial. Yeah, I contract out sometimes to do come in and talk about the wine and beer pairings with them, and they're a lot of fun. So, it's you've combined a lot of talents, and for entrepreneurs and people that are looking to do something, this is something I will talk about later on with Scotty Schindler and his System 1357. We're going to talk about strategy and creation and taking your past experiences and honing it. But you really have. You took the calculated side of the banking, your personality and flair you carried into an industry that would allow you to exhibit these character traits. And obviously, having a very keen and sharp brain, analytically speaking, has allowed you to really absorb and disseminate and share. It's encyclopedic, a massive amount of facts.
Well,
it's like if your name was on Wiki, if we could pick your brain on wine, I'd have a whole section of Wikipedia and volumes of things just on pages of information. It's incredible. So it's, for the viewers out there, Jennifer is a high-end resource, but also a very approachable and casual person that can help you even on the entry level if you have queries and questions. And this is, you love the coaching aspect as well.
I do.
And I know you're brilliant at it. And listen, you are an extraordinary person. We're enjoying some extraordinary drinks today. Happy virtual happy hour, everyone, with the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. You can find Jennifer again online, masterofwineonline.com, LinkedIn.
It's
masterwineonline.com. This will all be into the description of this actual video, where to find her as far as LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And if you have any questions about this show or like to appear on this show as a guest, we have a terrific lineup. We're going to explore all sorts of industries, different characters, different professions, different fields, over extraordinary drinks with extraordinary people. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you decide to do, make sure to hit us up on the YouTube channel at The Drunken Grape. Follow the channel, subscribe, like, share. You can find my Facebook page at The Drunken Grape or The Drunken Grape on LinkedIn. You can also hit me up directly as well on LinkedIn, or you can hit me at info@thedrunkengrape.com. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you decide to do, listen, Jennifer, you've been a fantastic guest. Much love. Ladies and gentlemen, have a terrific day. This is Rob from The Drunken Grape.